I'm thinking perhaps the best way to demonstrate the warp in this neck is to lay it on the planer here. And if I push this end flat against the planer, given that there's a radius on the fretboard, trying to even that out, find the center point, you can see here the neck is twisted. If I center this, so I'm sort of getting it in the center, I'll show you what happens at the other end. Centering the neck so it rests on the high point of the radius. You can see there's quite a gap. You'd expect some gap, at least the amount of the radius, and if you look at this end, that's pretty much the gap you should see all the way along if it's sitting on the top of the radius. And as you work your way along there, you can see by the time you get to the far end, there's actually quite a large gap. This tells me that the rock it backwards and forwards. This tells me that there's a twist in the neck, and I'm thinking probably the only way to really repair this, I could try to heat it up and twist it back, as some people have done with some success. I don't know, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that it won't come back after a while. I'm not even sure if the truss rod is causing this to twist, because the truss rod is quite tight and it's turned this way, which sort of implies to me that the torque within the truss rod is towards the right as we're looking at it, and that's exactly where the twist has occurred at the other end. Now, some people say that's not a problem, you know, it follows the contour of the hand when you play, and so you just leave it. Well, I probably would be inclined to leave it if I wasn't going to do a complete refret job. It seems to me the whole principle of refretting is to have everything square and flat. And you treat all the frets the same, all in line with each other, to get a nice flat and even neck. Can't see how that's possible with a twisted neck, so before I start I've got to get the twist out. So I think I'll probably go the hard route, on the basis that I don't believe this neck was ever manufactured to any great standard anyway. I'm not even sure that the dimensions of the neck are even. Seems to me that at this end it's thicker on one side than the other, and when I look along the length of the neck, the wood of the neck here, I assume that's some sort of mahogany, it actually lifts as you get towards the end of the heel of the neck right here. This wood here seems to get thicker and thicker as it comes towards the end, and sort of lifts up. So it just seems better that if this was nice and flat and straight, and this fretboard, if I could glue that back on top, so that it's nice and flat, and then do all the sanding to get the radius right. It seems to me that's the best way to approach this. So this is how I'm going to proceed with this. So I've got this piece of wood here, I just planed it flat, put some thin pieces on the side, so this will sit on the table saw with this guide here, the width guide. Then I should place this on the top. This will enable me to move this forward if I need to, and then I'm going to clamp it at the back and find a way to fix it. At the front here I'll probably put a washer or something and just put a screw into the wood. As long as it's below the level of the fretboard, it shouldn't get in the way. And this will enable me to keep that nice and solid. Won't move about as I try to take off the fretboard. It occurred to me before I take the fretboard off, I ought to do something about this binding. There's a polyurethane, I assume, finish on the neck which is lapped up onto the binding. In some cases it covers it completely, in some cases it doesn't. I've got one of these X-Acto knives, something similar. Got this on eBay. What I'm going to do is to put a ruler right in line with the edge of the binding, and just run the blade along just to cut through the finish. The idea being that I can take the fretboard off without it chipping or breaking in any way. I don't know if it's going to make much difference, but I'll give it a try. Oops, there you go. Made a scratch, so be careful. I was just about to say that the blade seemed to seat itself quite nicely, and then that happened. So I think I was trying to rush, go slowly. I'm doing the other side now, so I'm going to switch this round. Okay, I'm not sure the ruler is necessary. Okay, I would say, if you're like me trying this the first time, you probably don't need the ruler. There's enough of a difference between the binding and the wood. It's not absolutely flat by any means. Using my thumbnail here. As a guide. Okay, I think that's the way to do it. The iron's on, medium temperature. I'm going to continue to heat this and then see if I can remove the wood. It's quite hot. I'm going to be approaching it from this end. I can't get to it from the other end, not easily. There's a nice sort of ledge here, and I can get some kind of chisel or something under there to get it started. Anyway, not sure how long I'm supposed to leave that on there. It's warming up quite a lot. I don't know if it's transferring the heat particularly at this point. I know this is hot enough, quite hot. The one underneath is getting quite hot. This definitely seems to work. Right, well, let's slide this out of the way. This is quite hot. You can see a little bit of lift there. I've got a chisel here which has a little bit more of a bevel on it. That's forcing it up a bit. But I'm not sure if that's going to damage it or not. Every video I've seen of this process, it looks like it's a long job. Get some more heat back on there. This thing here is really cold, so I'm sure that's not helping. So I'm going to try to heat this up. That's better. I would assume if that's not hot, it will just, the glue will cool. Ow, wow, that's really hot. It looks a bit, it's all bending up, I don't know. Go straight on the fretboard this time. See if it makes any difference. This is still very hot. Wow. Okay. Now that seems to be a lot better. What's like, it just seemed to give there a little bit. I suspect that's fairly normal. There'll be times when it gives and times when it doesn't. Well, it is coming off. But also what's happening is the fretboard is sort of lifting at the front, which is lifting the rule, or the metal thing, off the fretboard. So I'm going to turn it over. And just move it back a bit. Ouch, boy, it is hot. Be careful, you can burn yourself. Big time. Might even be a good idea to wear gloves. I'm contacting the fretboard at the point where the tip of this is. It's got cold again, weirdly, which sort of tells me there's not much heat underneath the fretboard where it should be. I might switch to another tool. This one is large enough to get underneath the fretboard and keep the handle off to the side. So that may be the next step. Let's pull this out. I'll go over this one, which was protruding. Yo! That's hot. It does seem to me it'd be better if the tool itself was hot. Well, welcome back again. I'm coming to the very last part of this. It's been a bit of a struggle, but not massively difficult. I mean, it's accessible for most people to do this, I think, should you want to. I believe I've removed it now. Let's, yeah, it's come loose. Right, so I've pretty much ruined the iron, and you're going to see this as I do for the first time. Let's pull this out of the way. Get the clamp off. Move this roofing square, which is very hot. Wow. Right, well, the first thing I'm going to do before I really take a look at anything is I'm going to clamp this down. It's funny, it's got a bit of a split in it, which it had anyway. It seems to be slightly exaggerated. And this weird sort of white stuff, I think what it is it's corrosion on the truss rod, which looks like an aluminium casing. Quite an interesting truss rod, actually. It's larger than I thought it was going to be. Yeah. There's the nut. Let's put some glue there. All this sort of dust, which I believe is the sort of almost like aluminium rust. And that's the other end where I'll be looking at that later. I might need to pick that out. Anyway, successful. What I'm going to do now is to heat this back up with the iron and clamp it down so that when it cools down, it should sort of straighten itself out again. To try to get that curve out. There's a bit of a curve there now. I think you can see it at the end, and weirdly a bit of a sort of cup. What I'm doing here is I've got the fretboard underneath this straight edge. I've got it clamped at both ends. The fretboard is centered underneath. I'm heating it up just to get it warm again, and then when it's hot I'll apply a couple more clamps to flatten it down onto this wood, which is flat. I know this is flat, I just planed it on the planer, and I shall just leave that to cool. I've been trying to get this truss rod out. It's very, very tight. I assume it's because the aluminium has rusted and it's just locked itself into the channel. So I've been pulling on it and pushing it back just a little bit at a time for at least 15 minutes. I've managed to get it about halfway. I obviously don't want to put it too much at once in case it splits or bends. Either the wood may split or the truss rod might just fold up on itself. So I'm just working very gently. I can get a flat screwdriver down the back just to help with it. Managed to get it as far as it will go. But again, we have to be very careful because you don't want to bust the wood out the back. So doing this very, very carefully. But I thought I'd show you because it's quite possible, if anybody else wants to do a restoration on one of these Audition guitars, that you're going to encounter the same truss rod and all the same problems, that this is just corroded over the years since it was made. This truss rod has just corroded and locked itself inside the groove. I don't know whether you can see that, but there's white powder all the way along here. Looks like talcum powder. Anyway, so pulling it up and seating it is somehow loosening it slowly, bringing up some of that powder. So the more of that comes out, the better. Well, it's almost down to here now, so I couldn't move this at all in the beginning, and now it's moving all the way to here. So I think in a few minutes it'll probably pop out. So I'm just doing it very gently. Don't want to do any damage. Just get the one chance. I don't know whether I said that earlier, but you really just get one chance. If this breaks, then the neck's busted, the guitar is no longer original. You could probably put another neck on it, or find a neck. I understand that most of the Audition necks are interchangeable, they're all the same length, but they do have different variations on the headstock in terms of the colour. Some are painted black, as this one is, some are just natural wood. Some have this Audition logo, which is nothing more than a sticker, and some have a plastic one that's nailed or screwed onto the headstock. Seems like the biggest difference in the Audition guitars was the shape of the body and the pickup configuration. The ones that we got in Woolworths over here in the UK, I think there was 3 or 4 of them. I know at least 3, there may have been 4. They use the same pickups. In some cases there was 1 pickup, in some cases there was 2. That is all the powder. Just fell out. I just wanted to show you the amount of powder and corrosion that there is on this truss rod. Inside there you just see all that white powder. I can only assume that is the aluminium that's rusting. I can't believe that that was put in there for any other reason. Right, taking this out now. There it is. There you go. Very unusual looking truss rod. So there's the outer casing. There's a piece of aluminium. I think that powder is definitely rust or corrosion. This is the bit that goes down the inside. It's basically just a piece of metal with it's threaded at both ends. This end, the bolt on the end is it's been sort of welded on somehow, and just about the bolt on the other end. So assume that pulling on that is enough to adjust the neck. It's quite primitive really. I think it would probably do with straightening out.